Some people believe wealth is about luck. Others believe it's about intelligence. But when you study the lives of financially successful people, a different pattern appears. Most of them simply started doing the right things earlier than everyone else. The habits that lead to wealth don't suddenly begin at 40. They usually start much earlier, often in the teenage years. So in this video, we're going to walk through exactly what to focus on at ages 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18, if the goal is to build real financial momentum. And if you're already in your 20s, 30s, or even approaching 40, this still applies to you. Think of this video as a timeline checklist, a way to see which steps you've completed and which ones you might need to start now. Because the truth is simple, you don't need a perfect start, but you do need to start moving in the right direction. So don't just watch the section for your age. Every stage builds on the previous one. Skip a few, and the path becomes much harder later. Let's begin with age 13. Age 13. The power of time. When it comes to investing, one factor matters more than almost anything else. Time. Not talent. Not connections. Just time. Money that's invested early has the chance to compound for decades. At first, the growth looks small, but over time, it accelerates, like a snowball rolling down a mountain. Slow at the top, powerful by the bottom. If someone begins investing at 13 years old, they are decades ahead of most people. But there's one limitation. At that age, you can't legally invest on your own. So you'll need help from a parent or guardian. This is where something called a custodial investment account comes in. In the UK, one of the most common options is a Junior Stocks and Shares ISA. This allows a parent or guardian to invest up to £9,000 per year on behalf of their child. Of course, it doesn't need to be that much. Even small contributions, birthday money, Christmas money, or small savings can begin building an investment habit early. Many investors keep things simple and invest in broad index funds, which spread money across hundreds of companies rather than trying to pick individual winners. Historically, major market indexes have grown significantly over long periods of time, though markets always rise and fall along the way. The real advantage isn't complexity. It's simply starting earlier than everyone else. Age 14. Try everything. At 14, you have something many adults wish they could get back. The freedom to experiment. Most teenagers at this age don't have rent, mortgages, or serious financial responsibilities. That freedom gives you something extremely valuable. The ability to try many different things without major risk. Part-time work, creative hobbies, sports, side projects. Some of these might eventually lead to income. Others won't. But both outcomes are useful, because every activity teaches something. Discipline, focus, confidence. Many people claim they don't have a talent. But when you ask what they've tried, the list is often very short. Talent usually reveals itself after exploration, not before it. So experiment widely. And when something begins to feel natural, something you enjoy improving at, start taking it more seriously. Age 15. Build your first money base. At 15, money often begins to appear in small amounts. Birthday gifts, holiday money, a part-time weekend job. Most teenagers spend it quickly, and that's normal. But there's a smarter way to think about it. Instead of saving money just to spend it later, start building what you could call a stash. A stash isn't meant for short-term spending. It's meant to create opportunities later. Starting anything, from a project to a small business, is difficult when you begin with nothing. But even a few £100s can change that. A small financial cushion gives you options. This is also a great time to take on a weekend job, even if the work isn't exciting. Retail jobs, service jobs, and basic work environments teach skills many people underestimate. Communication, responsibility, handling pressure. These skills matter far more than the pay itself. And if you're in the UK, this is also the age when you can apply for a provisional driving license at 15 years and 9 months. You may not need it immediately, but later you'll be glad you started early. Age 16. Start building real skills. At 16, the timeline becomes more serious. You're only 2 years away from full adulthood. This is when it becomes important to start focusing on skills that create real value. By now, you may have discovered certain strengths. Maybe communication, maybe technology, maybe design, maybe practical hands-on work. Instead of relying on just one ability, start stacking skills together. Skill stacking means combining different abilities so they become more powerful together. For example, video editing plus storytelling, design plus marketing, technology plus business. When these skills overlap, they create something rare, something useful. And instead of spending money on short-term entertainment, consider investing in tools that help you learn and create. A computer, software, equipment, things that allow you to build, produce, or improve. Many careers and businesses quietly begin this way, with curiosity and the right tools. Age 17. Remove future barriers. At 17, there's one step that removes many future obstacles. Learning to drive. It may not seem important yet, but mobility changes opportunity. Being able to travel independently allows you to reach jobs, clients, and opportunities that others might miss. Without transportation, many side hustles and local opportunities simply become impractical. Professional reliability also matters. One simple rule many successful people follow is this: being early is being on time. Being on time is being late. And being late is unacceptable. Driving makes reliability easier. And once the skill is learned, it benefits you for life. Age 18. The world opens. At 18, the world suddenly becomes much larger. Legally, you are now an adult. This means access to things that were previously restricted. Opening your own investment accounts, building credit history, starting businesses, signing contracts. For those who prepared earlier, this moment becomes a launch point. Skills developed earlier begin creating income opportunities. Money saved earlier becomes capital. And discipline built earlier creates momentum. For others, this is where the journey begins. And that's completely fine, because everything you've seen so far still applies, even if you're already in your 20s or 30s. The path simply starts today instead of earlier. Number 1. Open your own bank accounts. The first financial move you should make once you turn 18 is simple. Open your own bank accounts. Not shared ones. Not accounts controlled by someone else. Accounts that you alone manage. And ideally, you should have 2 of them. The first is a current account, or what Americans call a checking account. This is where your everyday money flows. Your salary goes in. Your bills go out. Your daily spending happens here. For example, imagine you start working at a coffee shop or take your first full-time job. Your employer deposits your pay directly into this account, and from there, you use that money for transport, food, rent, or anything else you need. But this account shouldn't hold all your money. That's where the second account comes in. A high-interest savings account. This account has a different purpose. It's not for spending. It's for protection. Financially responsible adults build something called an emergency fund. Money set aside for unexpected situations. Losing a job. A sudden expense. Something completely outside your control. A good rule is to eventually build 3 to 6 months of living expenses in this account. Think of it as a financial shield. You hope you never need it. But when life becomes unpredictable, it can prevent a small problem from turning into a financial disaster. Now the next question becomes, where should you open these accounts? First, look for banks that don't charge unnecessary fees. Many people lose money every year simply because their bank charges for basic services that should be free. Opening and maintaining an account should not slowly drain your money. Another useful strategy is to keep your current account and savings account at different banks. This creates a small but powerful psychological barrier. When your savings are harder to access, you're far less likely to spend them impulsively. Out of sight often means out of temptation. In the UK, many people choose modern digital banks for their daily spending accounts because their apps make budgeting and tracking expenses easier. For savings, some banks offer competitive interest rates that allow your money to earn interest while it sits safely in the account. As of early 2026, several UK savings accounts offer interest rates around 4% or slightly higher, depending on the provider and conditions. It may not sound exciting, but over time, even small interest payments add up, especially when combined with good saving habits. Because before investing, before businesses, before big financial decisions, you first need a solid financial foundation. And it starts with something simple: a place to store your money wisely. Number 2, build your credit history. The second step after turning 18 is something many people misunderstand. Build a credit history. A common belief, especially among people who are new to personal finance, is that the best way to maintain a great credit score is to never borrow money at all. It sounds logical. If you never take loans and never miss payments, your credit should look perfect. Right? In reality, it doesn't work that way. Credit systems are designed to measure how reliably you handle borrowed money. If you never borrow, lenders simply have no data to evaluate. And that can make it harder to access things later, like mortgages, car finance, or business credit. One of the simplest ways to begin building a credit history is by opening a credit card at 18 and using it responsibly. The key is not to treat it like free money. Instead, use it only for purchases you would already make. For example, fuel for your car, groceries, monthly subscriptions. Then, at the end of each month, pay the full balance. If you do this consistently, 2 things happen. First, you avoid interest completely. Second, you begin building a record that shows lenders you are reliable with credit. Think of a credit score a bit like a reputation score for money. Banks and lenders look at it to decide whether they're willing to lend to you, and if they are, what interest rate they'll offer. A strong credit history often means better borrowing terms in the future. And over long periods, especially with something like a mortgage, small differences in interest rates can translate into thousands of pounds saved. Some people are uncomfortable with the idea of credit cards because they've been taught from a young age that all debt is dangerous. And in many cases, that warning exists for a good reason. Used poorly, credit can absolutely create financial problems. But when used carefully, it becomes a financial tool. The key difference isn't the credit itself. It's how responsibly it's used. Learning that discipline early can make major financial milestones, like buying property or starting a business, much easier later in life. Because lenders don't just look at your income, they look at your financial track record. Number 3, open an investment account. Once your banking and credit foundations are in place, the next step is to begin investing. But the important detail isn't just opening any account. It's opening the right type of account. Different countries offer investment accounts that come with major tax advantages. For example, in the United States, people often use a Roth IRA. In the United Kingdom, it's commonly a stocks and shares ISA. In Canada, there's the tax-free savings account, often called a TFSA. And in Australia, many investors use superannuation accounts. While the rules differ from country to country, they share one powerful feature. They allow your investments to grow with significant tax advantages and sometimes completely tax-free. Because of that, governments place annual limits on how much money can be contributed each year. These accounts are designed to encourage long-term investing, not short-term speculation. The good news is that opening an investment account today is far easier than it used to be. In the past, investing often required large sums of money and complicated paperwork. Now, many investment platforms allow you to open and manage an account directly from your phone. Another major change is something called fractional shares. Years ago, if a single share of a company cost hundreds of pounds or dollars, you had to buy the entire share. Today, many platforms allow investors to buy small fractions of a share. That means someone can begin investing with very small amounts of money, sometimes even just a few pounds. For beginners, this can be extremely useful. It allows you to learn how markets work without needing a large amount of capital. Some investment platforms even offer practice accounts, sometimes called paper trading. These accounts simulate the real market using live data, but use virtual money instead of real funds. This gives beginners the opportunity to experiment, understand price movements, and learn how investing works, without risking actual savings. Because investing isn't just about putting money into the market. It's about learning how markets behave over time. And the earlier you start that learning process, the more comfortable and confident you become. In the long run, the goal isn't to make quick profits. It's to develop a habit of consistent, long-term investing that compounds year after year. Number 4. Think carefully about university. One of the biggest decisions people face in their late teens is whether to go to university. And over the years, a question comes up again and again. Is university worth it? The honest answer is yes, and sometimes no. For certain careers, university is absolutely necessary. If someone wants to become a doctor, nurse, teacher, engineer, or lawyer, then higher education is part of the pathway. These professions require formal qualifications because the work involves serious responsibility and specialized knowledge. In those cases, university serves a clear purpose. You complete the degree, and it opens the door to that career. These roles are essential to society, and many people feel strongly that education for critical professions like these should be accessible to those with the talent and dedication to pursue them. But not every degree works that way. There are many courses where the connection between the degree and a real career is far less direct. And that's where the decision becomes more complicated. Because university isn't just a place to learn, it's also a major investment of time and money. In many countries, students graduate with significant debt after spending 3 to 4 years studying. So before committing to that path, it's important to ask a simple question. Does this degree clearly move me toward the career I want? If the answer is yes, then university can be an excellent choice. But if the answer is uncertain, there may be other paths worth considering. Many highly valuable skills today, especially in areas like technology, skilled trades, creative work, or entrepreneurship, are developed through experience and practice, not necessarily through a degree. Employers increasingly pay attention to what you can actually do. Your portfolio, your results, your track record. In some industries, those factors matter more than academic credentials. Another option that is often overlooked is apprenticeships. Apprenticeships allow people to learn while gaining practical experience alongside formal training. For many careers, particularly in technical or skilled trades, this route can lead to strong long-term opportunities without the same level of debt. None of this means university is good or bad. It simply means the decision should be intentional. not something chosen because of pressure from schools, friends, or expectations. The most important question isn't, should everyone go to university? It's, is university the right step for the life and career I want to build? Number 5. Avoid bad debt. Debt can either accelerate your progress or quietly hold you back for years. Think of it like an anchor. Used incorrectly, it drags you down and slows everything in your life. But used carefully, it can help move you forward faster. The difference lies in what the debt is used for. Some forms of borrowing can actually be strategic. For example, many people take on a mortgage to buy property. Real estate has historically increased in value over long periods of time, and owning property can also generate rental income. In that situation, the borrowed money is helping you gain control of an asset that may grow in value. The same principle can apply to starting a business. Many entrepreneurs need some initial capital to get started. If the business succeeds, the returns can far outweigh the original loan. Without that early funding, some businesses would never exist at all. In other words, certain types of debt can be used to acquire assets or create income. But there's another category of debt that tends to do the opposite. Consumer debt. This is when people borrow money to buy things that lose value quickly and don't generate income. Expensive gadgets, luxury items, and very commonly, cars. Now, there's nothing wrong with enjoying nice things. Many people love cars, technology, and lifestyle upgrades. But financing these purchases often means paying interest on something that's already depreciating. By the time the loan is paid off, the item may be worth far less than what was originally spent on it. In the UK, millions of drivers use financing agreements to purchase their vehicles. For some people it works, but for others, it becomes a long-term financial burden that limits how much money they can save or invest. Before taking on any debt, it helps to ask a simple question. Will this borrowing help build my future wealth, or quietly reduce it? Because over time, the decisions you make about debt can shape how quickly you move forward financially. Number 6. Start a side hustle. When most people turn 18, the advice they hear is simple. Go get a job. And for many people, that's exactly what they do. But sometimes the way this advice is presented makes it sound like life has already been decided for you. Wake up, go to work, repeat the cycle. In reality, it doesn't have to be that way. A job can be a starting point, not the final destination. If you followed the earlier steps, learning skills, experimenting with different interests, and investing in your abilities, then you already have something valuable. And that value can often be turned into a side hustle. A side hustle is simply a small business or service you run alongside your main job or studies. Many of the most accessible side hustles today are skill-based services. For example, copywriting, video editing, videography, web development, graphic design, community or social media management. These types of services usually require very little money to start. The real investment is time spent mastering the skill. In fact, the internet has created an environment where someone with the right abilities can work with clients from almost anywhere. But this only works if the skill itself is strong. That's why developing high-value skills is so important early on. And even if your main job doesn't directly teach those skills, it can still serve a purpose. It provides income. It exposes you to how businesses operate. And sometimes, it simply provides motivation. Many successful entrepreneurs started their businesses while working regular jobs, building something in the evenings and on weekends until it eventually grew large enough to replace their salary. So instead of viewing a job as a trap, try seeing it differently. Every shift you work can be fuel for the next step. Income to invest, experience to learn from, and motivation to build something of your own. Because sometimes the job that feels temporary is actually the launchpad for something much bigger. Number 7. Invest for the long term. The final step may sound simple, but over decades it becomes one of the most powerful financial forces in the world. Long-term investing. At the center of this idea is a concept called compound interest. Compounding means that your money doesn't just earn returns on the original amount you invest. Over time, it also begins earning returns on the profits that were already generated. In other words, your investments begin growing on top of themselves. A useful way to picture it is like a snowball rolling down a hill. At the beginning, the snowball is small, but as it rolls, more snow sticks to it. Then, that extra snow gathers even more snow. And over time, the snowball becomes far larger than where it started. Investing works in a similar way. Imagine someone invests $250 every month starting at age 18 into a tax-advantaged account, such as a Roth IRA in the United States or a stocks and shares ISA in the United Kingdom. If that money grows at an average annual return of around 8%, by the time they reach 65, the investment could grow to roughly $1.5 million, potentially tax-free, depending on the account structure. Now consider a second scenario. Someone else invests the same $250 per month, but waits until age 28 to begin. Under the same assumptions, by age 65, their investment would grow to around $680,000. That's less than half the amount. The difference isn't the monthly investment. It's the extra decade of compounding. Those additional years allow the returns to build on themselves again and again. This is why time is often described as the most valuable asset an investor has. Starting earlier doesn't require investing huge amounts of money. It simply allows the process of compounding to work for longer. And there's another advantage many people overlook. When you're younger, your income is often lower, which can place you in a lower tax bracket. In some cases, that means a greater portion of your earnings can be invested rather than lost to taxes. Over long time horizons, those small advantages compound as well. Because building wealth rarely happens through a single decision. It happens through consistent actions repeated for decades. Start early, stay patient, and let time do the heavy lifting. Whether you're 13, 25, or even 40, the same principles still apply. Build useful skills. Avoid financial traps. Invest consistently. And think long-term. Because the earlier these habits start, the more powerful the results can become. If you found this video valuable, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content about building wealth, financial education, and long-term success.